Hello, and welcome to part 2 of the Joy of Hair Week on the Positively Joy podcast. And I'm your host, Yvette Walker. We are about to have a conversation with Michael Quintanilla, who is a former journalist, used to work at the LA Times, and finished his career at the San Antonio Express News, where he retired in San Antonio. We're going to talk to Michael about his fabulous hair and what going gray means to him. Stay with us. Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Hair Week in the Positively Joy podcast. I'm your host, Yvette Walker. Thanks so much for being with us. And we're talking about hair this week because, hair is a spiritual thing. It can be a biblical thing, and it's a multi-million-dollar business, and it matters to a lot of us. So today I'm talking to Michael Quintanilla, who is a San Antonio resident and lover of all things San Antonio, who has marvelous hair. He has marvelous hair and has had marvelous hair for years and years, as long as I've known him. Thank you so much for being on the show, Michael.
Hey, it's great to be with you, Yvette. How long have we been friends?
We worked together back in 1980-something at the Dallas Times Herald, which doesn't even exist anymore.
I remember I had long hair back then.
Oh, I know, and I'm going to show everyone a picture of that hair.
Oh, no!
You have always had beautiful, healthy, and that's important, beautiful, healthy, well-manicured hair. And your hair, as I think a lot of our hair is, and this is my summer look, this is kind of my wild and crazy summer hair look, but you have always...
It looks great.
Well, thank you. But you have always, your hair has been a part of your persona. And just because I would say it was manicured and is manicured, that doesn't necessarily speak to the innovative, creative side of you, but you've always had like this amazing hair, and you still do today, even though it's shorter, and even though both of us are a few years past when we met, right?
Yeah.
But when you and I were talking about going on the show, you were talking about letting your hair go gray. So before we go there, though, let's talk a little bit about how you have always seen your hair. You had shoulder-length hair, 1980s shoulder-length hair that was beautiful. We all, men and women, craved it. So tell me what hair was all about for you. What has it been about for you?
Well, I think that 1980s hair was still, what can I say, leftover from the 1970s, because I was so big into disco. Mm-hmm. So... I think my first superhero was John Travolta, and the Bee Gees. I used to love the Bee Gees look. That that coif of all that hair.
Yeah.
And then the disco era. And I remember hitting the clubs in the late 70s and even in the early 80s when disco was barely like hanging on. And you had to have that hair. You had to have all that hair. You had to have that mop on your head. And so that's why I had that hair. And I was really working it. I mean, I really worked it. I remember even the films of the late 70s and the early 80s, all those great detective films like Serpico. I so wanted to be Serpico. And I was on the police beat then. And so I remember like heading to working the police beat and wearing the T-shirt and the tight jeans and having that Serpico hair with the mustache, and even the young girls working the detectives working behind the desk in the detective offices. They actually thought I was an undercover cop, so I was getting like the best reports when I'd go in and say, "Hey, can I have the report on this investigation and this and that?" Until one day they found out I was a reporter. I was always getting the best reports, and I think it was because of the hair.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, do you think that you have been, or certainly back then, were known by your hair?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, everyone, they And I think that was why I would get second glances because of the hair.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I've learned through fashion, and because, my background, I always like to say that I've gone from, in journalism, because my career, as yours, I've had a 40 plus year career in journalism as a writer and a reporter. I've always have said that I've gone from the crimes of passion to the crimes of fashion. So I've learned from designers and talking to them and asking them questions the way we're talking now, like, what's the best advice you can give? And mainly when it comes to fashion, it's and because I've covered high fashion, going to the shows in New York, Milan, and Paris, and asking designers, what's the best advice you can give women when it comes to fashion and how they should present themselves, especially when attending gala events, right? And looking their best at important events. And they've often told me, Yvette, and for your listeners and your viewers, focus on the waist up. And in particular, focus on the shoulders up, which means head and shoulders, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that often means the hair. Because when you go to events, and it's always the first impression. When you look at someone, you look them in the eye, and it's all about the hair and your eyes and your jewelry, your smile, and the hair. And so that's how you make the first impression. So yeah, I think it's always has been about your coif and everything around it. So
Yeah.
it's the face and the hair. And I think that's always really important. So I always tell that to young people also, like when you go to a job interview, like focus on good grooming. And grooming does include, a good head of hair and how you present the hair, how you style it, how you comb it, and how it looks when you walk into that interview.
Mm-hmm.
You got to wow them, and then and then after that, you wow them with your look and how you present yourself, and then when you go in, then you wow them with your talent. After you wow them with your talent, then you can wear a mullet after that.
Right, exactly. So I've been talking with people about hair, and a lot of people, um, and particularly women, but I'd say perhaps men too, can remember some childhood memories of maybe that first haircut, your beautiful sainted mother who was so inspirational to your life. I wonder if you have any anecdotes of your mom with your hair.
Yes. I have an anecdote of my mom with her hair. My mom always had beautiful long hair.
Hmm.
She always had very long hair. Her hair would reach beyond her waist, almost to, down to her buttocks. And um, when she was having a very difficult pregnancy with my youngest sister Becky, she made a promise to God, like, oh please let me make this, please help me with this delivery. And her promise was that if she delivered Becky safely, then she would cut her hair off. I mean, right? Like, oh my goodness.
Wow.
So I remember in our home, in our living room, and here's a good tip, ladies and gentlemen, like always have a mirror by the front door. So like when you're exiting your house, check yourself.
Yes.
And I have a mirror right by my front door. So
Hmm.
like check yourself before you leave your home, right?
Hmm.
And so my mom always had a mirror by the front door to check herself. And so I remember hearing this scream in the living room by the front door, and my mom had cut her hair
Wow.
because she had delivered Becky, and Becky was safe and healthy and all that, and she had fulfilled her promise to God.
Wow.
That was the promise that she had made. That in
Yeah.
her head, that if she had delivered Becky safely, that was her promise fulfilled, that she would cut her hair. So she cut her hair. Of course, it grew back, right? So I always say, like, oh, you always hear from women and maybe from guys sometimes, like, oh my God, my hairdresser ruined my hair. I forget about it. It's only hair. It's gonna grow back.
Right. Right. Now you have a lovely silver streak in the front of your hair.
It's all
Um,
natural.
well,
Yep.
and my mother had a very similar streak. Unfortunately, my gray is not coming in that way, so I am coloring right now. But tell us, well, so I mean, you certainly could have if you wanted to, because they're again not just for women. Certainly men can dye their hair. So talk a little bit about the decision, or maybe it was just a progression of going gray. And does that mean anything to you, or have you had any experiences, with your gray hair?
Yeah, I think I finally reached the point in my life, my age. I know when I was working in LA, and here's the thing, LA, you're always, I remember writing a story uh, of, um, of men and women chasing the fountain of youth in LA because that's the Hollywood way.
Yeah, and let me
You know?
just point out that you were a reporter at the LA Times.
Yes, 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 for a long time, for almost 15 years. And so an editor had asked me to write a story about, how people are always chasing the fountain of youth in Los Angeles. And I found that I was one of those individuals doing that.
Mhm.
And the way you do that is by dyeing your hair.
Mhm.
And I started investigating that and noticing how people on television, from news anchors to actors to even the Archbishop of the Catholic
Oh,
Archdiocese,
really?
guess who I called to find out? Come on. I knew he was dyeing his hair, and of course he denied it. But I know that God really knew the answer to that question. And so, and then I thought, I'm doing it too. And I remember speaking to my hairstylist back then, or my Dina, who was cutting my hair, and I said, Dina, I just like we have to stop dyeing my hair. It's starting to look like purple under the lights. You know that strange color when men dye their hair? It's like the color of magenta. And so I just wanted to stop doing that. But she kept saying, no, 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 we have to keep dyeing it. You're in LA. You're in LA. And so when I came to Texas, that's when I stopped dyeing it. I said, I just want to finally be authentic.
Mhm.
That's the one word we keep hearing a lot about now. It's like,
Mhm.
be authentic to yourself. And I just kind of felt that it was time to do that, that I really wanted to embrace the gray. And then when it started coming in, Yvette, I just kind of thought, wow, this is really cool. I like the way it's coming in. And now when I go out and about, I have these young guys coming up to me and they say, dude, who dyes your hair? And I'm like, are you kidding me? This is like my hair. Look at this. I mean, some guys really think that I'm dyeing it this way. And I said, like, look at me. I'm old. This is my hair. You know.
You mentioned
So
the
I
word.
really like the way I like the way it's coming in.
Yeah, no, it looks natural, but people pay to get that natural look. So.
I told Tina, I've gone from Dina in LA to Tina in San Antonio.
Uh-huh.
I said, just give me a cool modern haircut. So I kind of think, ladies and gentlemen, if you let your hair go gray, the way to make it look modern is like give it a cool twist with a modern haircut. And
Mhm.
with the pandemic, I started noticing how my hair started to get long.
Mhm.
Well, of course, all our hair is getting long, right?
Right.
And I just let it get long. I just recently got it cut maybe 2 weeks ago. It was much longer. I had that whole Sia look going on. Like it was up to my upper lip. I even did a really fun Facebook post with it. I grabbed a big Christmas bow and put it up here.
Uh-huh. I saw that.
And I had the hair like coming down to here. It was
Uh-huh.
so funny. And I went in and I told Tina, I said, let's keep this shag thing going on here.
Mhm.
Because she did cut the sides and she did cut the back, and we kind of did some fun things to it.
Mhm.
And she said, no, I really like the way it's coming in. Let's do it. So I'm just like having fun with it.
You mentioned authenticity and how that's kind of a buzzword today. But yet, I think a lot of people still feel the pressure, whether it's LA or not, the pressure of, as you said, chasing that fountain of youth. Why is that? And the question that we ask on this show is, how can we search for our happiness and activate our joy? How can we do that if we are chasing something and not being fully authentic?
Well, I figured I could fake it for a long time,
Mhm.
but then I figured out people know how to do math, you know, and that's what really tricked me up,
Mhm.
as after a while you can say, oh yeah, I'm 35, I'm 42, I'm 47, I'm 53, but then when you can't do that when you're on Medicare. So, and then people go, wait a minute, you've been in this business for 44 years. You
Mm-hmm.
can't be that age any longer. People know how to do math. So I just kind of figured, I just have to like start telling the truth. After all, you are a journalist. It's all about telling the truth. you know, you get the truth from people, so come on, tell the truth. So, and I'm cool with that now,
Yeah.
And the thing is, Yvette and all of your listeners and viewers, is that I don't, to me, I feel, and I see that in other people, is that I feel ageless. I know
Mm-hmm.
it sounds like so silly, but if you feel that, and sometimes you do feel that, some mornings I feel like I'm 110, feel that to my bones. But, other times I really do feel like I'm in my 40s or maybe in my 30s. And other times I do feel like I'm, 60 something or whatever.
Right, right,
But,
right.
but I do feel like in my heart and in my mind. And that's how I live my life, which I think is joy, Yvette. For me, the definition of joy is when you connect your head with your heart,
Mm.
and that's joy. Whatever you're doing, whatever you're feeling, whatever you're working on, and that's how I tend to approach everything. My head with my heart and my hands.
Mm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
when I start to write and I put my hands on the keyboard. It's my head, my heart, my hands. When I'm cooking or I'm making something, and I'm always making something,
Mm-hmm.
or even if I have a darn hair dryer in my hand, and the brush and the product, it's, it's, I'm always doing something. And even when you're working on your hair or styling your hair, you got to make it fun. You got to make it joyful, whether you're doing a pompadour, or you're slicking it back, or you're fluffing it up, or puffing it up, or parting it. It's
Yeah.
all about making yourself feel good and looking good. When you have that state of mind, it makes you happy,
Mm.
and everything else just falls in place. It's confidence.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I feel about fashion. You have to wear confidence first, and everything else falls in place. And I think it's the same thing. And if you don't like the way your hair looks, hell, just like stick it under the sink water and start all over again. How many times have we done that,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Or put on a hat. You should see all the hats I have.
Oh, I know about your hats, your Fiesta hats. That's a whole nother podcast.
Yes. They're pretty cool too.
They are. You and I, before we got started, was talking about favorite scriptures and how sometimes you'll pull one out depending on how you're feeling. Can you tell me a little bit about that and why you keep those close to you?
Yes, actually, I pulled these out. I carry these in my wallet, and that's why they're folded up. There's two of them.
Mm-hmm.
They're inside each other, and I have two, and one, and I also have these written, and I have them by my bed, and this is my favorite one, and this is one that I live by every day, and it goes like this. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. And
Mm.
that's from Joshua 1:9. It's all about having strength, right? And just like get out of bed and make something of today. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Like when you
Yeah.
take that first step out of bed, when you put the key in your car and you're driving somewhere, or you're walking into your office, or you're standing in front of a class, Yvette,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
or you're doing something. It's about courage and never feeling alone. So I love this one. I think it relates to so many things. And then this one, how people have a tendency to say the wrong thing to you or to someone else. And I've been thinking about this, especially lately, but with racism being in the news lately,
Yeah.
and uh, and you and I being people of color, and God knows, oh my God, I have been faced with it as a Latino, uh, and I can come up with so many stories of uh, of being of just being put down, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because being a person of color, or being gay, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or having been poor or whatever the case may be for so many of us, right? So it's this one. Whenever you feel unloved, unimportant, or insecure, remember to whom you belong. And that's from Ephesians 2:19 through 22. And so I love that one.
Yeah.
Whenever you feel unloved, unimportant, or insecure, remember to whom you belong. So we belong to God,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And we belong to
Absolutely.
God, and because we belong to God, we belong to our mother, we belong to our father, we belong to our friends, we belong to whoever is important to us, to whomever will support us whenever we need them. But most of all, to God. Oh my
Amen.
God, it chokes me up.
Yes. No, it's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
that's about again connecting your intellect, with
yeah.
your head, with your heart.
Yeah. No, it's so important. And
Yeah.
I
And
think
all of this great hair
in all this
on
great
top of
hair,
it.
exactly. I think that a lot of us have been home for a while, whether we were able to work from home or whether or not we were just being at home or lockdown. Um, and sometimes you feel like, what's the point? I'm not really going to take care of myself or take pride in myself. What's the point? What response would you have to that if someone told you that?
No, exactly. No, girlfriend, we got to take care of ourselves. I mean, every day it's like, I dance every day, I cook every day. You got to groom yourself every day. Come on, you've got to make your bed every day. I read the other day, or not, I heard someone say the other day who wrote a book, one of our military generals, one of our great generals, who said, you start out every day by making your bed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you make your bed every day. That's how you begin your day.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's so true. Make your bed, and that's like the mark of something greater. That's how you begin your day. So yes, you have to do all of these things, and I know we're in lockdown. I know, and here in San Antonio, we're one of the top 5 cities right now where COVID is, the cases of COVID are rising,
Yes.
and Texas is, Texas, Florida, and California at the moment. And so, in fact, was it 2 nights ago, we received an alert. I think it was in the evening, like maybe 7 o'clock in the evening, from our mayor uh, to advising the city to please try to stay home tonight
Mm.
because the cases are rising and hospitalizations are increasing. So that was quite unnerving and quite scary, right? So, and that really drove home the urgency of taking care of ourselves and staying home. And I know so many of us don't want to, and wearing the mask and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But still, we are staying home, and that doesn't necessarily mean that we have to, be lazy about this and lazy about ourselves. That also means an opportunity for us to find self improvement
Mm-hmm.
and maybe learn new things. Like I mentioned to you before we got on, I actually got up super early this morning and went to an open air market. And I said, I want to learn how to cook cabbage today. So I went and bought a big head of cabbage. And a friend of mine on the phone is going to teach me how to do that because I've never done that. And I love cabbage. And so she's going to teach me how to stir fry cabbage and all of that. So, like, learn new things,
Yeah.
how to do that. And you mentioned my hat making. I make hats. They're wonderful. They're so cool.
They are.
And so I've been doing that. I have a beautiful garden in the back. It's a container garden, which your garden is great too, Yvette.
You inspired me. I'm trying.
It's wonderful. Has it grown? Have you expanded it?
I have. And actually, I'm going to have an update on that on my blog, maybe sometime this week.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So, ladies and gentlemen, I have a container garden and I've been working on it like the last 3 weeks. And Yvette, I actually went in there and moved all of the container pots, cleaned it all out, and I counted 265 container pots in the backyard.
Oh my
It's
goodness.
Yeah, it's beautiful, and it was a great workout, and I'm staying active and all that. So it's just like finding things that you thought you could never do, and then you do it, and you kind of go, my God, I can't believe I did this, you know? I
Mm-hmm.
built a sidewalk, I did pavers around my deck, you know, that kind of thing, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so I even gave Charlie, you know, I have these clippers. Charlie's my little dog. Poor Charlie, I gave him a haircut. I kind of messed it up, but I'm not a dog groomer, so poor little Charlie.
Oh, poor Charlie. So you've got a lot, even in COVID. I mean, you've got a lot going on. What's next for you?
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm doing some writing. I'm actually putting all of a bunch of stories together that I've written. You know, I've used Facebook as my way to write and escape because you know, being retired now, I don't write for a daily newspaper, though I do some freelance.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been putting a lot of little stories together about my mom and just stories about having worked the fashion circuit and the red carpet and chasing celebrities and just like fun stories, like the silliest things. And when I
Mm-hmm.
write about them, people respond to them and they laugh and they say, "Oh my gosh, you should put this into a little book or something."
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking of putting things together. So I'm working on that. I'm making the hats and just doing fun things. I'm creating these outrageous masks that I'm blinging out like the way I do the hats. These masks,
Okay, so like I need to get one of
really cool.
those. I need to get one of
Really,
those. All right, say one for me.
yes, I
Cause you know
will.
what
I
I
will.
was,
I've got one in mind for you.
you know what I was thinking? Cause what happens when you talked about, for example, when you go to a job interview, what do they see? They see head and shoulders. Well, what about
Yes.
when you wear your mask? What do they see? They see your eyes and your hair. So you got to get that hair going.
Yeah. You got to get that hair going, and you have to. What is it that Tara Banks says?
Smize.
You have to smize with your eyes. That's
Yes,
right. Yeah.
yes, yes.
You have
Because
to
they
smize.
they
Back
can't
today
see
when
your
I was
mouth.
buying, yeah, when I was buying the cabbage today, I was telling the girl, the young woman behind the register, I said, "I'm smizing at you," and she knew exactly what I was saying. She said, "I'm smizing back."
Uh-huh. Oh, that's so great. Oh, Michael, thank you so much for doing this. This has been a lot of fun. Before we go, you have a wonderful suit on, multicolored suit that is hand painted. Can you tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about that suit and what it says on the back?
Okay, so the suit. When I had my birthday in January, I wanted to do a fun event, and so I have an artist friend, Giovanna De Zurita, and I wanted her to paint all of me. She's a wonderful artist, a young artist, very young. I said, Gio, I have this great idea. I always wanted to do this. So she painted, I said, paint my face, paint my ears, paint my nose, inside my nose, paint my lips, paint my teeth, all of me. And she says, great, I love this idea. She says, bring me a white suit. I want to paint, bring me your shoes. So she painted all of me. It was so great, Yvette. I wish you could have been here.
Mm-hmm.
So this was the jacket, and I'll turn around to the back.
Walking
So,
masterpiece. That is super
and
neat,
then
yeah.
we did a photo shoot with all of the birthday guests. This was in January, so it was right pre-COVID, like right before everything broke loose.
Yeah.
You know, and we did a series of photos, and that's what it was like. Even the table is painted. Everything is painted.
Oh,
I mean, these are
wow.
all real objects, but it looks like everything was painted on a wall,
Mm-hmm.
but it's 3D. Everything was painted. So that's what that is. And look at we're talking about the scripture. I didn't even think about this, Yvette.
Oh,
This is
wow.
the t-shirt I put on today. They're praying hands.
Wow.
Talk
Mm-hmm.
about a coincidence today.
No,
I
no,
just grabbed
no. There's no coincidences. Not at
it. No,
all.
why do you say that? It was
Oh,
meant to be.
no. Well, you know what? I believe that we are on a path and we have free will and we can make different choices, but I think that we have a path and that our steps are guided. It doesn't surprise me at all that you happen to have the t-shirt on with praying hands today. Not at all.
How amazing is that? I remembered when before I said, oh, I have to. While I was talking, I said, oh, I have to show Yvette the praying hands
Uh-huh.
T-shirt because you asked me about the scripture.
Yeah.
I didn't even think of. I just I put it on today. I wasn't even thinking. I
That's so
just grabbed
great.
the T-shirt. You know, I
Yeah.
love this T-shirt, but I
Yeah.
didn't even put the two together. You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. No.
Anyway,
It's
I
great.
love that nothing is a coincidence. Thank you, Yvette. I
Well,
love you.
I love you too. Thank you so much. And I appreciate you doing the show. Thank you very much. And
Absolutely,
to our
absolutely.
listeners, As always, thank you so much for being here. We've got one more episode to come in the Joy of Hair Week, where we will talk to Linda Jones, who did a remarkable thing. She shaved her beautiful head completely, and we'll talk to her a little bit about why she did that. So definitely subscribe so you will be able to get a notification for when that episode goes up. Michael, we love you. Thank you so much. And to our listeners, thank you for being here with us. As always, this is Positively Joy, and farewell for now. I promised you a sneak peek at Michael's luxurious disco era locks, and I'm going to keep that promise. Just go to the Positively Joy podcast homepage at Yvette B. Walker, that's YVETTE, B as in Barbara, Walker.podbean.com. And you will see pictures of Michael today and Michael circa 1980. I think you'll agree that he's as gorgeous as he ever was.